So
Well,
can
have
you
at it. Yeah.
okay, so can you clarify your position on okay, let's just start this off with I guess morality. So you believe in objective moral standards, right? And I do too.
Yes.
But I have a question about that. So do you think that an atheist can hold a position that you can know moral truths and you can know moral truths without having God? So for instance, like they can defer to the fact that humans don't necessarily have to have an objective standard, but there can be like I guess a line of history, and there can be a line of I guess they would say evolution that led us to realize certain things to maximize our pleasure, and with that they can ascertain moral value. Do you think that an atheist can hold that position or not?
I mean, I think they like the way that you worded it. They can they can ascertain the maximum pleasure. Yeah, I'm sure that they can. But in terms of attaining an objective moral standard, I think the answer would be that you could incidentally stumble upon that. I use that phrase often. Like you can incidentally come to like a conservative position or a position that aligns with Christianity or objective morality,
I see.
but you wouldn't be able to actually rationalize it. Like when pressed on how did you determine this, how did you come to this conclusion of objective moral standards, they're gonna fall
Okay.
flat eventually.
Okay, so but what I don't think that they have to really explain that it's objective. So let me say, how do I word this? So like they don't have to claim it's objective, and they don't even have to like I don't understand why they would need an objective standard. Like if they can incidentally come across that, then why would you posit God? I don't understand. Like
Well,
if
I mean,
why would they need an objective grounding when subjective grounding has can work, because you can come across incidental truths, you know what I mean? Like if
yeah.
I can incidentally figure out everything that would maximize my happiness, what use is objective moral values to me? You know what I'm saying?
Well, it's about coming to a rational and intelligible worldview, like with necessity. So you, yeah, like I said, you can stumble upon this and you can reach the conclusion by accident, I guess, or by incident, and that might be fine in terms of practicality. But when you're actually pressed on your moral
Okay.
standards and like what's your worldview, what
Okay.
is truth, what is intelligibility, what is morality, in order to have coherent necessity, you do have to at some point acknowledge where it comes from, like where precisely is the
Okay.
foundation.
Okay, so let me this whole debate, by the way, quote unquote, is me playing devil's advocate because I don't align with this, but I kind of have my doubts, you know what I mean?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, so what if they were to say that like morality is pretty much based on our perspective. So if you were to say down is this way, you point down, literally. The person on the opposite side of the world, that would be up for them, right? So what if they would say morality is based on a viewpoint, right? So it doesn't necessarily even like this whole idea of morality, it was all gained from, I guess, evolution, and that we have a really strong intuitive sense without it actually existing. So this could be a way for them to coherently explain away why we feel this way without having to defer to objective moral standards, if that makes sense. So like if you're looking in if they only look in reference to their maximizing happiness, as I said before, I am repeating myself a little bit, but I don't understand why like evolution can't be a coherent explanation for like stumbling across these truths. I don't know, like
Well, evolution is an entirely different
no,
argument,
but like
but
so
it
so like so I'm saying like if humans did if we assume for the sake of argument that they're right, that we got here through thousands of years of evolution, then that would explain perfectly why that we would have a predisposition to wanting to procreate, and why we would like to keep each other happy. Like you don't need to necessarily have they don't have to. They don't have to posit God. They don't have to like this all can be explained by like those processes, you know what I mean?
well, I mean, just to answer the first thing you mentioned about like relativity, it's like up means up to me, but up to somebody in China means down.
Yeah. So it's
The,
so
yeah,
they're saying relative to their perspective
yeah. But
of.
this is the thing. This is the thing about relativity. For something to be in relativity requires something beyond it to be in relation to. So down relative to me requires me as the relative point of reference. But in order for my perspective to be valid, either I have to be ultimate or objective, or I have to be standing in relation to something else above me, right? So in order for down to mean down to me, my rationality to interpret what down means has to be in relation to something else, right? So even with me granting, like, yes, direction is relative, there still must be something beyond me that validates my reference point as my perspective. And the same can be said for morality. Like there is context required for morality. So like objective morality might sound like it's just cut and dry, standard, everything is the same, but no, there's situations where, for example, like killing somebody is justified and it's not wrong. Like if they're attacking you or threatening your life or something, it's not exactly wrong. Um, but then the standard of objective morality saying like murder is wrong, just killing an innocent baby against their will for no reason, that's going to be wrong because I'm standing here in relation to the objective standard of morality. The only way I can
Okay.
rationalize that is wrong is if I have some sort of ultimate authority guiding me and to tell me
Okay,
why
I
that's
get it.
wrong.
Okay, but here's a question for you. Name one moral truth that you can't ascertain through reasoning and like so like I think that
I gotcha. Yep.
correct me if I'm wrong, but you can logically come to the conclusion that almost anything that is considered moral within the Bible or anything, you can figure that out without God.
I got a
Any
prime
one
example
thing.
for you.
Yeah.
Incest.
But you can prove that that's wrong through the atheistic
Okay.
viewpoint though. You
Go
can.
ahead. Go ahead and play devil's advocate and show me how.
But because you can see the well, if like even if you say like gay people for instance, like you can see that um it disrupts the natural order that has been established throughout, I guess they would say thousands of years of evolution, and that would create a like kind of like a going against nature that would cause like higher depression rates, that would cause more mental illness. And you can see that like they could say that through these facts that they could show science that yeah, this isn't justified. This is unhealthy. Like incest, that is unhealthy. These people are a lot of times if you look into them mentally ill because they're going against the natural order
Well, here's the
that has
thing.
been established through evolution. So like I don't think you have to defer to God for that. You can look to no further than scientific studies on on these people
Well,
and
this is
their
the thing.
lifestyles
This is the
and like
thing.
the fact that they're abused as
Hang on,
kids
you
like
gotta let me respond, dude.
okay go.
So, like, the thing is, I agree with you that it's not healthy. Like, you're not gonna get a lot of pushback on me from there. I'm just saying, when you're, like, and you would note, I'm sure you've noticed this if you've spoken to enough atheists about gayness or incest or whatever. You might find, and especially if they're deriving morality from that which maximizes pleasure, they often justify being gay with that, right, with that exactly maximizing pleasure. Like, okay, let people do what they want to do, have sex with who they want to have sex with, as long as they're enjoying themselves and not hurting other people. But if you are to apply that as your standard for how you derive morality, then that would also apply to incest,
No,
right?
but I actually think the opposite. I think that you can use the same. I think that doesn't make any sense because they say, well, if they have pleasure from doing X, Y, or Z, that's immoral. If they get pleasure from that, right, then it's good. But I'm not saying that. I'm saying that there are studies that disprove that is like showing that their depression rates, showing their the rate at which they were molested as kids, showing that the disruption of I guess the natural order that you can use to derive a morality in this case without having to defer to objectivity and
Okay, well, no, I actually, hang on, I agree with you.
you don't yeah okay go.
Wait. You said you don't have to defer to objectivity. I agree. It sounds like you're proposing, and I know you said you don't actually believe in this, but you're proposing a utilitarian,
Yeah,
relative
but
morality argument where
yeah.
as long where it's like yeah, it causes a lot of problems, and I agree. Like there's a lot of depression, a lot of STDs. It's not evolutionary. It's beneficial in terms of evolution, like
Yep.
just even just societal evolution. I don't mean macroevolution, when I say that. But they but to illustrate it better, if you are to just like say we're in a vacuum, all else being equal, there's no like we're just talking one single event. Obviously, killing a baby is wrong, and there is no way you could derive utility like a utilitarian argument from that to say that this is actually right. I mean, do you agree with that?
Okay, well, that's interesting, but what if I were to pose that as we
What you
see in
didn't answer.
animal,
Do you agree that there's no way to derive maximizing utility from just killing a baby at your whim?
I'm not too sure about that, but what I would say to that is that I think that there again non-objective reasons that you can use to explain why we feel that way. So what I mean by that is, you know how like animals, right? Animals like they feel like pain when their little childs die, their whatever you want to call them, the goat baby, the whatever baby. And you can see that in other animals, you can see that in evolutionary biology and everything, right? So wouldn't it make sense through all of that that we would have a similar connection response and throughout time we would mistake that for something objective just because it's so ingrained and intuitive to us. You know what I'm trying to say here? Like it doesn't like even though I can't say that this is wrong without deferring to objectivity, I can give you a reason why I reached the humans reach these conclusions. So,
Yeah, well, the thing, even
yeah.
going even to like just speak more broadly, the problem with subjective relative morality or even attempting to reach objective morality without God is that everybody has different opinions, everybody has different beliefs, everybody has different rationale, different lines of thinking, the way they come to conclusions, things like that. And
Mhm.
ultimately, you say, oh, humans came to this conclusion. Well, no, not every human has come to this conclusion. People still disagree on abortion. People still disagree on gay marriage, gay sex. People disagree on incest. People disagree on rape and murder. Like, humans have not just come to these conclusions. The only way you can come to an objective conclusion is if you're standing in relation to the objective standard, right? This is
Okay,
it's the only
so
way, and I should last thing to add to it is the only way to come to that and be able to rationalize it. Like I said at the beginning, you can incidentally stumble upon this. You can incidentally stumble upon, be like, yeah, I think being gay is wrong. I think killing babies is wrong. Yeah, you can stumble upon that, but when pressed on why is that wrong, you're not going to be able to actually rationalize that if you don't have God.
okay, so I a little bit I lost my train of thought a bit, but when the going back to what I said before, about our innate instinct to protect our child, like
Yeah,
how did you respond to that? Can you go back to the beginning again?
the
You remember
innate
what you said?
instinct to protect your young.
Yeah, so you said that like why would killing your baby, and you said in a vacuum, like killing your baby, that's wrong, but you can't justify that, right?
Oh no, no,
But
I
even if
I can I can, but
no, 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 no,
go ahead.
I'm saying that like they don't have to justify why it's wrong, but they can show reasons why as I said before, like just as you can ascertain that homosexuality is against the natural order, you can you can also ascertain this truth. You can also ascertain the truth that killing your baby would be going against the natural order and the way we have evolved, and that would cause detriment. And again, this
Well,
isn't
that's a
as much. This
naturalistic
is
fallacy. That would be a
there.
naturalistic fallacy.
So
Just
explain yourself.
yeah, just because things happen in nature doesn't necessitate that they are good or not good. Like there's different types of species out there that eat their own young. There's different types of species out there that rape, that kill their own sexual partners, things like that. Like they kill their own, they eat their own, they have incest, they do all these types of things that we're like, oh, this goes against the natural order of things, but then we see it out in nature, so we can't really derive whether it's actually good objectively just from what we observe in nature, because a lot of things happen one way and another in
Okay.
nature.
So you said another thing you said is humans don't agree upon a lot of things. So uh
Yeah,
because we don't agree on things, is that like an argument against subjective morality? Is that what you're saying?
that's an argument against reaching objective morality just through human autonomous reasoning.
So I'm not gonna make that argument at all. I think that's not smart. The angle I'm going at this with is that you don't need like okay, I'm gonna try shifting this into not objective and subjective morality. I'm just trying to talk about very specifically whether you need God to ascertain things that will benefit you. So
No,
if you
no,
can
no.
ask,
Yeah, I don't. So in order
so if
to,
like every moral truth you can figure out, every single moral truth you can figure out, like that's objective according to what me and you believe. Every moral truth can be found through without God. So I'm just saying, is God a necessity to if God is a necessity to explain moral things, then wouldn't the moral argument not be an argument for God, but you know what I'm saying? Would it not be like
so two things. For one, we can reach every moral truth without God. That is a massive claim that requires a massive burden of proof. But then to just like I think maybe sidestep you even having to do that. The point is, I'm not sure if you're familiar with presuppositions, but you can ascertain truth incidentally, and that's fine, and you can presuppose nothing in doing so. But the overarching presupposition from a theistic worldview is that truth necessarily derives from God as the ultimate. And you like I said, you can reach truth incidentally without
okay, okay,
knowing that God is the standard. But in order for it to be truth, it does derive from God, which is ultimate.
okay, I understand. So you said it requires a big burden of proof to say that every moral truth can be reached without God.
Yeah, like
Okay,
if we're
so let
talking
me expand
formal
on that. Let me
logic, yeah,
expand. But I asked you the question, what moral truth can like just name one moral truth that you would need God to prove, and you said incest, right?
yeah.
And I said to you that there are ways that we can know that it's immoral
Well, hang on. I would
without
just
deferring to God. I'm just saying that like
well
I
no
don't think that
listen
that
listen dude listen. This is the reason I said it's a big claim. When we're talking about uh like form just in a formal logic standpoint, if you were to say every moral truth can be reached absent of God, that the reason that's such a massive burden of proof is because you would have to know every single moral truth, and you would have to know how to reach it without God. And I think even to before we even go there, I would just need to know like absent of God, what does moral truth mean?
well if they don't have to define it as something objective. They just define it as something that maximizes pleasure. If we can like
Was
any
that is
truth
that a
that
moral
okay look
truth?
look so let me explain this.
What is a moral
So
truth?
you
Explain what a moral truth is.
So a moral truth would be, I guess, in their perspective, relative to what would make the most happiness. And I think that, for instance, if we're talking about homosexuality, you can prove it through scientific studies that it goes against natural order and therefore it does not maximize pleasure. And if you look at
Well, see, I don't
that's
I
the
don't know if
reference
you,
point
I
that
don't
we're
know if you
going
could
after.
actually argue that. I don't know if you could actually argue that from a relative standpoint because there's a lot of
Yeah, but
gays.
you can
There's a lot of
because
well, hang on, listen. There's a lot of gays out there. I mean, every gay person is gonna say like, no, this maximizes my pleasure to be gay, and like, I, I'm
but
I'm
they're
I'm
wrong.
I'm
But they're
shooting
wrong.
I'm
Let me
shooting.
explain
Well,
why.
hang on, I'm shooting in the dark here, but I would say upwards of 90+% of the population, at least in America, are in favor of gayness. So they're or of like of people being gay. So like they're gonna say if you shoot that down, then you're minimizing their pleasure because they want people to be allowed to be gay. They think it's
Okay, so
freedom.
okay, so there is I think okay, look. So, do you agree that, hold on, how do I word this? So, even if 90% of people agree that 5 plus 5 equals 11 instead of 10, right? There is still the truth that 5 plus 5 equals 10. It's
Well,
not
yeah,
11.
I
So, I'm
agree with
saying that,
that.
so,
Yes.
okay. So, what I'm saying is that just because they say that they maximize their pleasure, if I can prove to you that it's not true through means that aren't objective morality, such as scientific studies and statistics, then you wouldn't need to defer to that. You know what I'm saying? You
Well, what
don't.
is
You can prove them wrong. You can prove not those 90. You can show the 90% that they're wrong, similarly to the 10 plus 10 or the 5 plus 5 scenario, through with
wait? What is
statistics
what
and
is proof?
numbers.
What does proof actually mean
So
to
you
you?
can so okay, so in this case, the proof would be that this is against natural order and law, and it is harmful, and
No, no,
And
no,
this
no,
is
no, no,
against,
no,
and this is against our
no, no.
division. This is
What does the word proof mean?
it's just a justification for off a supposition, right? So like they would say that this like the maximization of pleasure, this proves that this does not maximize the pleasure. It's relative to that, right?
So
That's
yeah,
what I'm
you're
saying.
just speaking relatively, because like no, when if you ask me what does proof mean, proof would be aligning with a reference point that has already been set in place, right? And ultimate proof would be that which conforms to the mind of God as the absolute standard of proof and truth and morality, and etc. But if you're just saying proof in this context is that which maximizes pleasure for the most amount of people, that's just relative proof based on how people feel. You're still not reaching objective morality.
Yeah, but I'm saying that my whole argument is that I don't. I'm trying to say that why do you need objective morality if every objective moral truth can be found through a subjective experience?
Okay, so this is the thing
I'm saying,
you.
look. So look, let me try to explain this again. So if I can disprove that their subjective opinion is wrong, right? Through through me deferring to a bunch of statistics and evolutionary biology, and that like I don't understand why that's wrong.
So
Like,
let me just try to illustrate it for you. Let me play the role of like a thief, and you've got $5 in your pocket. I come and steal it from you.
yeah.
Okay, and you say, "Hey, that's wrong. Don't do that. Give me my $5 back." And I say, "Well, this maximized my pleasure to have an extra $5. It's not wrong. What do you? How do we resolve this dispute?"
Well, that's a good question. I mean, like that, there's also a nice question that says like, well, if Nazism took over the world, like let's say 90% of the world, would that make it morally justified, right? Because the world in that case, they could justify, well, the evolution led us to this moment, right? That this is now justified because most of the world is behind it. But I just think that it's very clear that there's a certain set of things that have been proven over time to maximize pleasure. So if you were to like steal $5 from people continuously, then it's gonna bite you in the ass, right? So you reap what you sow. You heard that phrase, right? So that actually won't even maximize your pleasure. So let me explain why. When you steal something from someone, right? Like let's say I steal in your example, I stole $5 from you. Maybe that selfish act gave me initial pleasure, but because of conscience and these other things, that would mean that by the end of it, I might be more sad and more heartless of a person, which actually would be worse for me. So I like even in that example, I would say the person that stole from it, it's provable through this
Well,
logic.
well, here,
So like
think
you
about
can you
when I was playing the role. I guess I should have specified. I was playing the role of like like an absolute hedonist. A hedonist basically just means if it makes me feel good, do it. If it makes me happy, do it. If it aligns with my preferences, do it. Don't no other thoughts beyond that. Just and like put somebody in the role of a hedonist where they're just like more money equals more happiness for me, aligns with my preferences. So if I have to take $5 from you without your permission, that makes me happy, then it's good for me, and it aligns with my
Yeah, but it's
preferences.
not good. It's good for him, but it's not good for they started with a presupposition that because we all start with presuppositions, right? They started off saying that like maximizing pleasure is a good thing. That's their presupposition, right? And your presupposition and my presupposition, this is what I believe. This is just my doubts. I'm trying to weed them out right now. Our presupposition is that God exists and He instilled objective moral standards into us, right?
Yeah.
So when they talk about what their difference, so I think that again, a hedonist, right? Through the maximization of human pleasure and through looking even through history, you can actually, I believe personally, that you can prove that overall that person will have less happiness. I think that if you would look at studies of people that were hedonists, right, that do these type of things, they tend not to be good people. They're
Well, no,
not down to
I
earth. They're
agree
not
with
happy.
you.
Like, so
Look,
I'm saying
dude.
that through looking at that, you can see that is wrong
Well,
in relation to their to their
Yes,
Their
dude.
maximization of
Again,
without deferring to objective morality,
I
even in that
agree. I
case.
agree with you. There is a very real correlation between
Exactly, and you don't
people.
need objective.
Hang on, hang on. I agree. There's a very real correlation between people violating objective standards of morality and then doing the mental gymnastics to justify that as good according to their own relative morality, and then them being depressed as a result. I agree that there are very like porn addicts, for example. Like porn is objectively immoral, but people that do it feels good at the time, but it turns out their lives are miserable because of it.
Yeah.
So like I agree with you, but I'm just playing the role. I'm just playing the role of the hedonist who just doesn't give a fuck, and they're just like, I don't care. Porn makes me happy. Porn makes me feel good. Porn gives me happy juice. They don't care, and as long as it continues to give them that happy juice, they're just going to interpret that because they live in a world of relativity. They live in a world of subjectivity where there is no ultimate. There is no God, at least not one that they can identify. And they're just going to say, as long as this continues to bring me pleasure, then it will continue to be good for me. And there's no way that you are going to just convince them and be like, well, hang on, I can prove you this, I can prove you this, and they're just going to be like, well, we can't actually know, with no absolute, immutable, and unchanging standard, objective standard, which is God. Then you can never reach without an objective standard to stand in relation to constantly be referencing. That's what we're always doing when we're like, if you're, I imagine you're a Christian or you're some sort of theist.
I'm a theist. I am a Christian, and these are my
Yeah,
doubts. But
yeah, that's fine. So
yeah.
let me just finish this. Like every time we say things, every time we assert ideas, every time we just do things in our everyday lives, we're presupposing relation to God as the one that allows it, the one that instantiates all of it, the one that maintains it to be regular, to not change, or to not change in a way that we can interpret it. The subjectivist, they're just doing. This is all just random. This is all just a coincidence. They're just nihilists. They're moral nihilists. They just say, I think, therefore I am. What makes me feel good is what I do. Again, hedonism. Like there's no way you two like say like I'm standing here as a moral objectivist trying to preach God. You're standing there as a moral objectivist trying to just stay secular with it, and they're just a straight up hedonist. They're not going to end up agreeing with either of us. They're just going to say like, fuck you, me go watch porn. You know what I mean? Me go steal $5. They don't care. You know what I mean? Like how do you justify a rapist? How do you tell them that they are wrong? Like when they're just a serial rapist without mentioning God.
That's very interesting to me. So, how do I talk to someone that's a serial rapist and tell them they're wrong without deferring to God?
Yeah.
Well, I think that with people that are that far gone, right? Regardless of whether you believe in subjective or objective morality, I think that those people, we can all agree from both sides, those people are probably past the point of no return. So I think that when we're talking with irrational, crazy people, it matters not whether you try to explain it to them with subjective or objective terms. It's like about like I don't think that's relevant because someone like that, it doesn't matter what you use. You can use any method. You wouldn't be able to convince them. Those people will stay doing that no matter what. But I'm
Mm-hmm.
saying that I just don't understand how that relates to like if I can provide a good explanation, that means that any person like with an open mind doesn't have to accept objective morals. They can ascertain that to be true based on the presupposition that they want to maximize happiness.
Okay.
They can actually if they had an open mind and if I can prove to them that logically if X, Y, or Z is wrong, then they wouldn't need to defer to
Okay, I think
objective
I
morals.
understand what you're saying. I think
You have to
well here
you have to have
I think
some.
I can respond adequately because I think maybe I used to be this way. I think I definitely used to be this way. I used to be like a moral objectivist to some degree, but I didn't really believe in God. I was like maybe an agnostic type, even though I don't really believe in agnosticism anymore. Not the
No,
point. I didn't.
I
I
don't I
didn't.
don't
Well,
I
hang
don't
on.
think that's a very fair
No. It's fine. It's fine. Because
characterization.
well, no, it's fine. I used to be like a moral objectivist, but I didn't defer that to God. I didn't attribute it to God. And you could ask me like, hey, okay, so you agree that killing humans is wrong? Like, yeah, okay, and that's why you're pro-life? Yeah, okay. You agree that stealing is wrong? Like, yeah, okay, that's why you're against stealing? Yeah, okay, fine. But then if you really press me and you're like, how do you prove that stealing is objectively wrong? How do you prove that and when we say proof, we're presupposing that there is necessity involved. There is impossibility of the contrary of any other outcome. How do you prove with impossibility of the contrary that taking from somebody else that which is not yours is wrong? And what is wrong? You know what I mean? It's a deep metaphysical question that if you don't have a metaphysical instantiator, something that bridges the gap between the physical and the metaphysical, it's called the transcendental category of, and morality is one of them. If you don't have something to bridge the gap between the two, then you're not going to be able to justify your stance. Like I said, you can reach these positions incidentally, and they can just align with your preferences. Yeah, stealing is wrong because stealing does not align with my preferences, but how do you actually argue and prove that that is objectively wrong? You would need something that transcends the physical and the metaphysical. You can't just stand there in a material world and say that stealing is wrong and I can prove it through a math equation. It just doesn't work. You know what I mean?
I'm thinking about it a lot. I mean, I have to say you're doing a pretty good job because like you have bring up some things that I haven't thought of, but I'm still like I'm just trying to take it in right now.
Yeah, I mean, like, let me try to say it like in a way that's like how do I'm trying to not be confusing because I understand like the concept is very confusing.
No. I get about like I get a lot of what you're saying, but there's still my doubts. Like I just have like I have to think about it a little bit longer.
Well, if you so like I'll again use myself as an example. I used to be pro-life and like agnostic atheist type. Like I didn't even believe in God, but I was pro-life, and I believed in. I was like I'm pro-life because morality is objective, and killing innocent humans is objectively wrong. And all that really meant, was in my relative perspective, I see no scenario where killing an innocent human is a good thing. Meaning, I see no scenario where killing an innocent human aligns with my preferences. Even though I didn't know I was saying it that way, that's what I was actually presupposing. But then when I learned, when I learned the deeper metaphysical concept of what objectivity means, what objective morality means, what truth means, what absolute truth means, things like that. When I learned all that and I learned like this is this standing in causal relation to God as the instantiator, now I can rationalize that objective morality is a thing and killing an innocent human is objectively wrong
Okay.
because it doesn't conform to the mind of God.
Okay,
If that makes
I have
sense.
I have a good thing to mention here, I think. So, okay, so we don't so if we don't know certain truths about the world, like for instance, like an atheist wouldn't even know if they exist, right?
Right.
That's like something that they
Basically.
have to hold to. Like that's like pretty much a fact. Like I don't think I've seen any atheist try to argue that they know 100% that they even exist. Um,
Unfortunately,
which
yeah, you're right.
Yeah, there's a lot of people that don't even hold that position, which is it is that is I feel like that's very on the surface. It seems very powerful, but when they explain it, it makes a little bit more sense to you, but like it's just an absurdity.
Yeah, it is.
That
That's what you chalk it all up to. It's absurdity. Yeah, I agree.
but it's definitely interesting to look into, but even if we don't know all of like I just like okay, just try to explain this one more time to me. Why do we need to know it as an objective fact? If like what would the difference be in a world where we knew it as an objective fact and then or a world that everyone let's say okay, let me just give you an example. There's two channels on YouTube. One channel uses the method of preaching the word with like the good word, I guess you should say, with an objective standpoint. Like this is objectively true. This is God's thing. And there's another channel that proves things about the world that you can ascertain it like for maximum happiness, and they can like they both come to the same conclusions, and they're both very convincing, and they lay out their arguments. Could they not have convinced the exact same amount of people? Would it not be the exact same effect? Because you said we can
Well, no, no.
incidentally reach
Again,
these conclusions.
I told you, yeah.
No, we said we can incidentally reach these conclusions, but I'm saying, but you wouldn't have an objective grounding for them, right? But
Yeah,
I'm saying
that's
that,
the point. That's the point right there. Is
yeah,
that
but
you can reach you could reach the same conclusions incidentally as an atheist, for example. But and that might sound good on the surface, like you said, like yeah, this could have the same exact effect on society. People could end up ultimately following the same standards. of morality and such. But the problem with a secular objective morality argument is not that the conclusion doesn't follow. It's that the foundation doesn't follow. It's that when you reverse it chronologically, when you say, okay, you reach this conclusion, show me how you got there. Once you get to the very
Ah,
once you get to the very beginning, like what was your foundation of knowledge for how you reached this conclusion, the
okay.
atheist is going to be bankrupt. The atheist is going to fall to absurdity, like we said earlier. and
Ah,
and and, and like the way to put it in a way that's unmistakable is like, if you build your foundation on something that is incoherent, then anything built on top of that foundation will ultimately fall incoherent as well. Like, think about if you built a house out of fucking sand, like with the foundation of
you're
sand.
speaking to the Bible parable right now, right?
I'm actually not sure.
There's a Bible parable about this, about a man that built his house on like rocks, strong rocks, and like sand.
Yeah, but
There's a
just think.
parable
Yeah,
about it.
think if you built a house on sand alone, with no concrete, with no block, no whatever, no foundation material, the house, no matter how strong the house is, no matter how high grade your shingles are, no matter how thermal proof your windows are, you got the high end siding, whatever it may be, it's all going to crumble eventually because the foundation is unstable. The foundation is incoherent. In a worldview where you come to the conclusion that killing innocent humans is wrong based on my subjective interpretation, but it's always that way in my subjective interpretation, somebody eventually is going to come along and knock the supports out from underneath you, and you're going to be like, oh shit, I don't know how I reached this conclusion, and then they're going to say, well, I came to this conclusion that killing humans is only wrong if they're not
Okay.
sentient, for example.
Okay.
You
So
know what I mean?
okay. On the first half, I actually think that made a lot of sense, and that gave me some insight. But on the second half, you said something that I think that okay. I want to further question.
Mhm.
You said that yes, it could have the same effect on society, but essentially it doesn't change the fact that they don't have the necessary grounding for it, right? But I don't think that just because they don't have the necessary, I don't think that I still think that if they reach the conclusion in a logical way, that can't be just altered on a whim. Like I don't see anyone like I lay out my case for homosexuality being wrong because of this and this, and they can't just come in there and say, well, my subjective experience is different, therefore you're wrong. They have to address my arguments. So like I
Well, I,
understand what
I
you're saying.
agree. I agree with you.
I don't, it's not easy. Like the one thing, like I understand what you're saying. It actually makes a lot more sense to me, but I just don't think that your characterization of it being easy to like knock down. I think that both
Well,
methods would
I'll
work.
show you how you would do it. Like, just think of it in a formal logic standpoint, where you got like premise one, premise two, conclusion. Like premise one, if you do homosexual acts, then you are not aligning with my preferences, and that's wrong. And then
No, wait. I need to stop you there.
yeah,
Can you change the premise to if you do homosexual acts, then you don't align with. You could just say that you're not maximizing happiness for the sake of argument. You're not maximizing
yeah,
happiness.
yeah. That's fine. That's fine. Okay, so if you do homosexual acts, you're not maximizing overall happiness. Premise two, you're doing homosexual acts. Conclusion, you're not maximizing happiness.
Exactly.
So okay, now how do you knock the supports out? You say, how do you determine what maximizing happiness is? How do you actually determine that? How do you measure happiness empirically
Well,
without
not
just
even just
somebody's word of
happiness, but
mouth?
like okay. So well, here's what I would say to that. I think I would go the angle of saying even if you couldn't, hold on. Wait, say that one more time so I can think about it.
So yeah, you got premise one, not maximizing happiness if you're gay. Premise two, you're gay. So premise three, you're not maximizing happiness. Or conclusion, you're not maximizing happiness. Question on and how do you knock the supports out from that is, how do you empirically measure maximization of happiness? I to me, you can maybe think of a different answer. To me, the only answer is by surveying people's word of mouth, which would ultimately be subjective, like entirely subjective.
But what if they base their subjective surveying off facts surrounding it? Like as I said before, like doesn't it not knock down the supports if they say, well, I'm going to defer to this objective fact that this, and this, the STD rates. Like that literally shows. That's
Yeah,
an
you can cite
objective.
STD rates all you want, but like again,
That
what if you got some hedonist or some just delusional person that's like for some reason they enjoy STDs or they enjoy having sex regardless of if they'll get an STD or not. Like again, like when we're because now when you're if you're measuring
okay?
happiness
Wait, wait,
just
wait, wait,
based
wait,
on
wait.
people's word of mouth and you've got a hedonist who's in the mix, well that hedonist is now going to throw off the statistics.
Okay, okay, okay. I kind of get what you're saying. So you're saying that there's no way to prove that there's no way to prove that the STD rates going up is a good thing. That's what you're trying to say. So there's no way.
I think you meant it the other
So
way, but yeah.
no, like so no, no. What I mean by that is like, well, I maximize human happiness by because like okay, I'm maximizing happiness by stopping homosexuality, right? And then they say, oh, hold on, how do I formulate this? Okay, I think I understand what you're saying because it's a still relative subjective experience. When you're saying like this is bad because of this STD rate, then they can very easily say that it's good because of the STD rate. I
Exactly.
can kind of see
Yeah.
that.
Like if
There's
there
there's no
and
counter position.
and if it's all relative, I
They
mean,
like STDs, right? They like
yeah,
STDs. What if they like
exactly,
it?
exactly, yeah, hedonist, yeah,
Yeah.
or an anti-humanist, an anti-natalist, things like that. These anti-humanitarians that are just like, fuck it, I want to see the world burn, or I'm a eugenicist, and the people that get STDs generally are not desirable to my eugenic population, and that allows them to die off. Therefore, STDs are good. I mean, there's all types of ways you could reach that conclusion. It's not incredibly outlandish. It's psychotic. Don't get me wrong. I think we're in agreement that it's psychotic, but you could actually come to that conclusion in some way or another. And that's why you're going to come to disagreements. You're going to have these people
Okay.
speaking relatively that are just not going to align with the objective standard of morality that you get from God.
Okay. Yeah, that was a great conversation. I wanna go to a different topic now because I think you proved your point pretty well.
Okay.
Um, why if God exists, would he make like let's say this conversation in it of itself, right? Like moral truths, like these arguments from subjective experience. Why are these arguments so convincing, and why isn't it more clear the truth? Like, why is it so hard to find the truth? Like, for instance, no one, if someone had no access to YouTube or any other resources, because I think that this is pretty sound, but like, I don't think I'd be able to come to like even to the knowledge I know now, right? Like, I don't think I'd be able to come to it without the resources I've been blessed with, right? So like
Well,
how does it make sense that we live in a world where it's like it's kind of like it's not even just that it's unfair for people, but like
it's very difficult
so
for people, right?
it's very difficult for people, and not just that, the concepts that you have to grasp in order to get a good understanding of who God is, and these concepts like it can be very dependent on where you live. But like I don't know.
Well, okay, so I would answer it in multiple ways. The first thing, why is it so difficult for people to come to the truth? Because we live in a fallen creation, and that's explained in the Genesis story when Satan corrupted the world and corrupted everything in it with his like, hey, you don't have to listen to God. Hey, just go ahead and eat the fruit. So like the world became corrupt from that point, and now it's full of deceit, it's full of lust, it's full of sin, it's full of pride and anger, and just it's full of things that are ungodly. So every path to God is being blockaded by a path to sin, a path to self-indulgence, a path to hedonism, basically. And you know what I mean? Because all of the things that are actually good in the world, like that are in conformance to God, they aren't very enticing from a humanist perspective. Where it's like, left to your own vices, should I go watch
It's a lot of
porn or
delayed
should I not?
gratification. It's a lot of
Yeah.
delayed
Yes.
gratification,
Exactly.
right?
Yes. That's a perfect way of putting it. Like should I get this quick gratification from getting the dopamine rush from watching porn, or should I abstain and wait until marriage and only have sex for reproductive purposes, things like that. Like you've got one which is a good option, but it's a very delayed gratification and it will lead you to ultimate salvation, and one that will give you happy juice now, but you're leading yourself down a path to get to eternal condemnation. So it's like,
And
why is it
not to
so?
mention you'll be more depressed as well.
Yeah, that's, yeah, I agree, but like, like that's just the point though. Is like, why is it so hard? Well, because there's all these temptations in the world. Everything is a temptation
Okay. Okay.
because
So
of
let me let me.
the fall of Genesis. And then your other question was, uh, how would you have gotten to know this? Well, I think you would have one way or another. I might sound sort of like a Calvinist when I say like there's a greater plan, and like a Calvinist would tell you that it's all predestined. I don't necessarily believe that, but like it's all part of a plan. And in Romans 1, it's one of the best chapters in the Bible, I think, is where it says that his God's invisible image was made known to man in a way that he is without excuse. So either way, you do know it. Morality is inscribed on your heart, and you do know God's word and God's will
Okay.
by
So
some
here's my
means.
problem. Here's my problem. That sounds all great. It all sounds great to me. But there's this one little voice in my head that's telling me like there's
That's
been
Satan, bro.
millions. No, 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 no,
I'm
no.
just
No,
kidding.
you
I'm
didn't
just
even
kidding.
hear what I
I'm just
said.
kidding. I'm just kidding. Go ahead.
There's this voice in my head that's saying like this. Well, if the Bible says this, then it must be true, right? So let's look at reality and see if it aligns with reality, right? If we
Yeah.
look at reality, we have billions of humans across history, and it seems very, like, okay, I can go into other things later, but it seems very like if it doesn't seem very probable that every single human has gotten this information. So like let me explain something. If I was in a time before the internet and I wasn't having this conversation with you, I think there'd be a chance that someone like me that's open, I feel like there'd be open to like to the fact that objective morality and God exists, but they just didn't have the resources. Like it seems like how could billions of people have existed and you claim that every single one of them that ever wanted to find truth has had like access to it even though it's like so
Well,
it's
I'll
so
tell you. It's
it
because
seems like an impossibility.
God made us in a way that we can know it, and that we're without excuse. He revealed it to us and made us in a way that we can observe the revelation, so that we are without excuse to not be observing it. Think about it. Like
Do you see that with people in your life personally? Do you
I'll
think?
use myself as an example. I used to be an atheist, but I think looking back, I think I always knew there was a God. I acted as if there was a God, and everybody acts as if there's a God. By placing faith in just basic worldly things, you're pretty much always presupposing God, or presupposing something ultimate that instantiates, a regularity
No,
of
but
a
a
regular.
hedonist wouldn't do that, would they?
The hedonists are intellectually dishonest. They are living in God's world, and they are always presupposing something ultimate and absolute. They just won't admit it with their mouth. You know what I mean? So
So explain that further. So if they reject God's existence and they do what's immediately pleasurable to them, then how would that how do you
well, yeah,
ascertain that
yeah,
they
that's what I'm saying.
they can't?
They're acknowledging. Well, it's hard. It's kind of hard to explain with like an action, like indulgence, like gluttony or something. But I'm just saying, like when you talk to somebody who's a total hedonist, and they're like, say you're in a debate and they're trying to assert logic. They're trying to assert logic and the law of non-contradiction. They love doing this, but they don't realize that when they assert the law of non-contradiction, they're presupposing something beyond that instantiates and secures the law of non-contradiction to remain the way that it is. It's a metaphysical property. There has to be something that transcends it and maintains it, right? Transcends the metaphysical and the physical to maintain it. And they're presupposing that is happening. But if you ask them what is it that does instantiate that and maintain it, they'll just say, I don't. They'll just say, you can't know. They'll just say, I don't know. Nobody knows. Nobody knows anything. We just assume this to be the case because they're just dishonest. But they know it. And I'm not going to say I was a hedonist per se, but I was definitely an atheist. I was definitely self-indulgent to some extent, to probably a significant extent. But I think I always knew in the back of my head, like, yeah, there's got to be something out there. There's got to be. And I was just dishonest. But it was because I was without excuse. I did know it. I am made in a way that I can know it, and I just chose not to. I chose to defy
Okay.
God. I think everybody who's an atheist is doing that.
I think that was a great answer actually. That was pretty good. Um, okay, so yeah, that was a good answer. I'm very pleased with that. So I'm gonna go to something different now.
Okay, let's start to wrap it up though. Whatever you got, just make it quick.
What do you got to do?
Nothing. It's just getting a little late. That's all.
Just made
That
my job super easy.
wait, what's his
Yeah,
job?
BNC was supposed to be the moderator, but we didn't really need it. It's because he's a good faith. He's Christian. He's good faith. So I figured when you said you're conservative and such, it it wouldn't be exactly lights out blood sports, but yeah.
Lights out, blood sports.
Yeah.
Wait. Before I continue quickly, do you want to talk to me again on some other times or no?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, any time really. Like, I was
I'm
just saying that
enjoying
it's
this
getting.
dialogue a lot.
Yeah, I was just saying it's getting a little late, but I mean, but if
Yeah,
you want to, if you
yeah,
want to
that's a
bring,
really good point because sleeping is very important.
yeah,
God would want us to sleep. Anyway, quick. Um, so have you ever heard of? Okay, let me go. Have you heard of a channel called Apologetic Squared?
no, I have not.
Okay, so it's a Christian apologetics channel, and he's talking about. I want to know your position on this. He goes through a lot of arguments with God, about God, but let me just go find. It's like the wait, hold on. Sorry about this. I'm just gonna look this up real quick. Okay, so have you heard about the horrific thesis?
No.
So the horrific thesis talks about essentially what's worse, hell or non-existence. So it's talking about well, if God really gave us a choice, then it's not much of a choice. Like it's either you believe me or you go to hell, essentially. And if hell is the worst possible like imaginable thing, then it's not really much of a choice they're talking about. That's one part. That's like one branch of the argument. And the other one is kind of going into what is the morality of sending people to hell. And I want to hear what you think about hell because this is, I think all Christians agree, this is one of the really important topic that is, it's scary to me very personally.
Yeah,
Um,
I mean, I just think of when I hear the word hell, I'm not even sure if it has a unmistakable biblical definition, but the way that I interpret it is just basically absence of God's, how do I say it, like oversight of God's presence, and it because God is the absolute immutable presence of the universe. If we're living in another universe per se with no God, it's just going to be chaos. Everything's going to be unpredictable. Everything good, we're going to be removed from that. So all of the deceit you can think of, all of the pain, all of the lying, all of the stealing, cheating, everything bad that you can think of, that's what hell would be. And it would just be eternal hellfire pain. Hell, I'm using the word in the description, but like eternal deceit and damnation, and just the removal of God from
okay.
your life. And last sentence, it's like atheists think they're living currently absent of God, but they're not. They're living in God's world, in God's creation. It's just fallen. But when they actually arrive at the gates and they get rejected and they get sent to hell, they'll learn what it's like to not live in God's world, to live outside of God's world. That's kind of the way that I interpret it of hell. I
Interesting.
think I'm not an expert. I'm willing to be
So,
corrected on
so,
that, but I think
okay,
that's
so the
generally what
Bible
it is.
actually has specific verses about hell sometimes. They talk about how it's like a place of gnashing of teeth. You heard about that?
Yeah, yeah, like
And it's just yeah, it's horrific, right? So like
yeah, it's
they
just
they
a
find
but
they
yeah.
ki- they kind of find like a contradiction like with a perfectly good moral God and the harshness of the punishment given to non-believers, atheists, etc.
Oh, I don't think it's a contradiction because all they're doing when they say, um, how why would a perfectly moral God send me to burn? Well, they're just saying he hurt my fifis. I don't like this. That's all they're saying. Like you just got to ask them on what grounds do you object to the morality of that God instantiates? They don't have anything.
It's a more intuitive thing, right?
Yeah, they just say this doesn't align with my feelings, with my preferences. I don't like it. Okay, well, sorry about your luck, bro. You're not in charge here. That's the way I would answer.
Okay, so here's a question there's another question I have a lot of questions by the way. I don't know. Okay, we want to set a time limit so that we can go to bed. Like
Yeah, I
what
got
time
I
do I
got
cut
like
off
I
at?
got like 5 more minutes.
Okay, so just make sure you cut me off then. Okay, so here is it's a very devil's advocate type question, but do you think that it would have been better for God to not create humans, knowing that because He talks about in the Bible that the path is thin, right? There's not a lot of people that come to Him. So considering that and how many humans have existed, we're talking like there's more than a 99 to 1 ratio. I'm thinking, right? So
I can
if
just answer
there's
your question before your question. Do I think it would be good if God never created humans? No, I can't. I could never say that because now I'm actively defying the will of God and the plan and God's plan.
okay,
He made
yeah,
us as image bearers of Himself, and to
yes, I
say
agree
like
with that. But like, how do you rationalize the fact that he made a lineage of people which 99% over 99% of would probably end up in eternal damnation. So, do you think that I'm asking for your like
I
what do you
rationalize that
think
by
about that
saying
personally?
I rationalize that by saying that God
Over
is.
99%.
Yeah, well, I mean, I don't know exactly where you got the number from, but I'll humor
That's
it.
what
I'll humor it. It's fine. It's just the way I rationalize it is that God is the standard of justice. God is just, so His will, His word, His plan, no matter what it is, even if it doesn't align with, your everyday Joe's uh, feelings and their preferences. Well, it doesn't mean he's not good. It doesn't mean that he's not just. So
but
it's
there is a question of like if God is the very definition of truth and goodness, then wouldn't wouldn't what he says and what he espouses in the Bible, wouldn't that be sound logically and conform to our understanding with his will? I feel like that's something that like I feel like that's one of those things that are like kind of in contradiction almost
well,
to
no, no. I think it
because
does.
God would want you no because like God would want you to come to him through logic and reasoning. And if like if there's something that just doesn't logically add up in the Bible, like something like that, like I feel
Well,
like
I would
that is
agree if something doesn't logically add up in the Bible, it should be investigated.
yeah.
But how do I
You just
say
don't
it?
find you just don't find issues with that personally.
Well, no, it's that if you're not coming to God through His revelation, um, because you're saying you don't understand it or you don't accept it or whatever, you're just a fallible human. And again, it goes back to like the atheist worldview. Like they know God exists, they just deny it, right? They just won't confess it with their mouth. And it could be the same. The same answer could be applied here, where you don't you're not interpreting God's logically or rationally. That's because you're just being dishonest to some extent. Not you, but like an atheist. That's
So you
really
don't
that's
think
really what's up.
okay, what about the how do you think God treats people like in there's islands that are like away from society and they're like savage people. Like there's a baby that's born onto an island like that is pretty much doomed to become a savage beast. That's all they know on that island. What do you think about those like those weird island
Hmm.
people that are very like that doesn't that isn't that really weird?
Yeah, I mean it's weird, but like the answer is that you will be judged based on the information that you were presented with and how you reacted to that. So like a perfect example, I think, is just an aborted baby. An aborted baby, you don't even have to go on an island. Just an aborted baby that never got the chance to be birthed and to learn things and to speak and interact with people. Well, they were still given some, I mean, we're acknowledging them as human beings, as image bearers of God. They were still given some sort of information through the power of the Holy Spirit, through God's will,
The
and
moral law.
whatever, morality inscribed on their heart.
Yeah.
So like they're still going to be judged based on whatever they were provided with, and who knows how that actually turns out. Who knows what that actually entails. And the same thing could be said to the baby that's born on a deserted island. But then when it comes to like the actual savage Indians or whatever, the actual savage tribes in, they say, like the depths of the Amazon forest,
Yeah.
Amazon rainforest, they are still, it's called general revelation, where everything that we experience is evidence of God. And being that He made us in a way that we are without excuse to not know God, you could, that they will still have, there would still be some way for them to reach God in His word. And sometimes that might just be a missionary sailing to that island on a boat, and
Okay.
they're there to spread the good news. But then the tribe slaughters them and kills them. Well, sorry, you were given the opportunity. These tribe mates are now, they're now, I don't know the word I'm looking
Okay.
for. They're now,
They're morally responsible.
yeah, because they were given an opportunity to to
Okay.
be to be
Okay. So
enlightened, and then
here's
they rejected it.
okay. So this is an argument based on prior probability. Do you think there's a higher prior probability that every single human has received like This is like again, if you already believe that God exists, then I guess this would be more convincing to you. But even as someone that believes God exists, I just feel like there's a really inherently low prior probability that every island has, and every human in history has like that one missionary or that one ray of light. But as you said, I guess they are judged on what they know. So the people that aren't, that like the people that are, I feel like that's impossible for every person to get I guess the people that don't give that knowledge, then that is I guess that is filled in that gap with that.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm sure that there's. I don't know the whole story. I don't know how to answer that question completely, but that's about as far as my knowledge goes. But I
Yeah,
think,
it's a tough one.
yeah. Anyway, I think we're an hour in here, so I'm probably gonna wrap it
We're
up.
an hour. We're an hour, and yeah, that time flew by. I had a great time. Thank you.
Yeah, it was cool. Well, yeah, thanks for stopping by. You can stick around in the Discord if you want, but and if you want to talk, like, there's other people in here that are you know, Christians that you can talk to, or you know, we got some interesting characters in here, so just
Interesting
back around.
characters. This sounds
Yeah,
like this is a great. This is like a gem of a Discord server.
yeah,
Thanks.
it's cool. But yeah, anyway, people that are still remaining in the live chat, thanks for listening, and people that are viewing this on YouTube, thanks for watching, and like, comment, subscribe, and you'll get more content.